Hello, welcome one, welcome all, welcome back to my channel. I'm alive and well. I just haven't been posting, but I recently started reading again, which is amazing. And I kind of wanted to come back and talk a little more about what I'm reading, but also about a bunch of other things that I just wanted to talk about, because this is mostly a conversation and it's not really, what I have been reading. I just kind of wanted to touch base on everything that's been going on in the literary world and the things that I've been doing, and I kind of have a loose structure in my mind, but of course, I might go on for a long time without getting anywhere. But the first thing that I kind of want to talk about was that I've now lived in Canada for almost 2 years. I moved in September of 2022, and the whole Palestine scenario that started in October last year has kind of shifted so much of my perspective while living here, because living here I can see that I can actively participate more in the movement rather than if I was living in Pakistan, because here you have the ability to participate in a global movement. You can still support this movement from Pakistan, from back home. There's just different ways of doing it here, because here I can access protests, I can access libraries, I can access book events, I can support Palestinian authors in person, and just by reading more of that. So I just wanted to kind of talk a little more about that. When I moved to Canada, I would kind of ask everyone, where do you buy your books? Because that was my number one concern. I was very excited about the library, but I do enjoy buying books. And I would ask people, where do you go? And they would suggest Chapters, Indigo, Goals, all of which are essentially the same entity. And it was quite shocking to discover that this is an entity that supports Israel, and I did not know that. So initially I did buy from them because I just treated it as a bookstore. And then when the movement started after October the 7th, when I started realizing that this is an organization that is actively funding Israel. I think they support IOF, but there's a lot of detail into how they support Israel. I did a complete boycott to the point that I don't even feel like walking past it. And if I had to compare it to a bookstore in Islamabad, I would compare it to Said Book Bank, which is basically very flashy. It's all the mediocre things which are extremely overpriced. And I did feel like that about Indigo, but I just ended up there because I just didn't know any other stores here. But ever since I came, I always looked out for options, because I would just walk about, find different bookstores, different things to do, different places to go. And in this time, I found so many amazing independent bookstores, all of which support Palestine. So the first one that I kind of came across was Queen Books. And Queen Books I ended up visiting in December last year, after a year and a half of being here. And when I went to Queen Books, they had a whole display of books related to Palestine. Then I discovered Book City. Book City I had figured out earlier on. If I can just talk, this just has to be here. You'll have to deal with it. Book City is basically an independent bookstore, and they have an amazing collection. It's very different from everywhere else, and they offer a range of different books. And recently I discovered another bookstore which is called Another Story Bookshop. It's really far from me. It's all the way in the other end of town. It takes me an hour to get there, but I basically went there because I went to two author events, and both of them were Palestinians. So being here, I just have access to more events. So I went to the launch of Hannah Mushabbik's Homeland, which is a children's book about Palestine. And I don't have children, and I'm not a child myself, but I once was a child, and I love reading children's books because I think they're for me. I need the wisdom simplified. I love going to events like this and buying children's books. So I ended up supporting Hannah Mushabbik. I bought the book. It's in another room, but if I go and get up right now, this video is just going to be left where it is. And another book that I recently bought at a launch was Bethlehem, which is basically a cookbook. And again, because I moved here, I have to cook myself. I'm of course taking more of an interest in cooking. But the fact that this book launch was more of a conversation about how the occupation has affected cooking in Palestine, how people can't access food, people can't access ingredients. It's easier to get ingredients imported to Palestine rather than have them supplied from Gaza to Ramallah, in the West Bank. So it's kind of confusing how people get food there or how the access has been limited, but it's also just how Israeli occupation has adapted Palestinian food and changed it according to their sensibilities and just claimed their names, things like that. So very much like I'm still reading about Palestine. There's a few books that I'm kind of in the middle of. I started them at some point and I realized that with everything going on, it's just hard to, keep up with my reading, because I am supporting and participating in other ways, but the books kind of took a little bit of a backseat because I just wasn't sure how much of brain I have at this point. But some of the books that I'm intending to read are Her First Palestinian and Other Stories by Said Tibi. The other day when I went to the event about the cookbook, which was by Pale Tyne, Said Tibi was actually the moderator. And I really could have got the book there and had it signed by him, but I had already put a hold from the library and I knew it was going to come in the next couple of days. So, I kind of didn't want to invest by buying the book and getting it signed, but I just waited for my library hold to come through, because I did wait for 2 months for the library, so it felt a bit redundant. This is a collection of short stories, so this is fiction, and I have it for another 15 days, so I'm going to try to get through this book in the next 15 days. The other book that I have also from the library is Footnotes in Gaza. Now, it is Gaza in English, but I used to say Gaza before, but as I engage with Palestinian events and I go to these protests, like, everybody is pronouncing it as it's supposed to be pronounced in Arabic, and because Arabic dialect is very similar to Urdu because the alphabet's the same, I'm very comfortable saying Gaza, so I will say Gaza. Anyhow, Footnotes in Gaza is by Joe Sacco, who is a photojournalist, and this is basically like a work of non-fiction in the form of a graphic novel, even though the word graphic novel is not correct because this is non-fiction. I don't know what you would call this, but basically it's about his experience in Gaza while he was traveling there. And I have read or consumed other books by Joe Sacco. In Pakistan, I do have the book about Bosnia, and there's another one that he wrote about the American politics. So he is familiar to me, and this form of memoir, I think that would be the right word, this form of memoir is accessible to me because I have engaged with it before. I read Persepolis by Marjan Satrapi, which is also in this form, which is about the Iran Revolution, and also the one about the Holocaust. I think it's called Mouse, but I don't remember the name of the artist and the author. So these are a couple of library holds that I have which are about Palestine, which I have to read. The other books that I bought but I haven't got through, again about Palestine, are Erasing Palestine, Free Speech and Palestinian Freedom by Rebecca Ruth Gold. And when I believe, like, I read the prologue, which is basically, that argument that people have that if you are pro-Palestine then you are anti-Semitic, and she kind of basically debunks this whole debate about how being pro-Palestine doesn't really mean that you are anti-Semitic. So this one is really short. I just read the prologue and then I realized that this would require more brain than I currently have, but it's definitely on the list. Another book that I have is called We Could Have Been Friends, My Father and I, a Palestinian memoir by Raja Shahade. I read another book by this author last year, or the beginning of this year actually, maybe I finished it in January, which is called Palestinian Walks. And Palestinian Walks is about the 6 different walking journeys that the author took in Palestine in 6 different times. So I believe from 1978 to 2006, he took like 6 different walks in Palestine, and the whole time seeing how much the land is shrinking. And there's another book that I have, which somehow I didn't bother bringing into this room, but I think it's called In My Mother's Footsteps, and it's about a family. I've started that too. I'm somewhere in it. I don't know how far along, and I kind of, again, had to stop because I would rather read these books when 100% of my attention is there rather than just skimming through them, because, this is something that I want to engage with meaningfully. But that book is, I believe it's called In My Mother's Footsteps by Mona someone, picture here. So these are the kind of the pro-Palestinian books that I am still going to be reading. I'm going to be supporting, I'm going to be protesting. If you have a problem with that, that sounds like a you problem. But moving on with this conversation, while witnessing all of these things in Palestine and also in Pakistan, right? Like Pakistan's a country where I spent my entire childhood, my entire adult life up until now. So I moved 2 years ago. It's not like I've suddenly lost my identity or any sense of, not really recognizing what's going on there. Things are really difficult in Pakistan too. I visited this year for about 2 months, and things are so much more expensive, the inflation. And I feel like there's a certain level of, I don't even have a word for it. Like, I feel like people are getting desperate because inflation is so high. That means, the crime is high, politics is a mess, because I was there during the time of the election. And recently you hear these like really, really horrible stories coming out of Pakistan, whether it's about animal abuse or whether it's about people who are, in different situations, and it's all very hopeless. So after a while you do start feeling like, what is the point of all this? Like, what is the point of just reading, because you're not really able to do anything, you're not able to help. And I started falling into this kind of bit of a despair where I was like, I don't want to read about anything unless it's this, and if I can't read this, then I wasn't finding energy in my brain to just read something else. But recently when I came back, I realized that I had to make more changes, because this is something that I don't really talk about a lot, because moving is hard. Moving to another country across the world, which takes 24 hours at least to get back, is hard. Getting married and living together is hard, and managing a household, all of these things that you kind of haven't learned in your life is hard. And when you're getting used to these things, like, reading is not a top priority for you. I feel like I tried to maintain it very much the first year that I came here, in 2022. I had some semblance of like, this is how much I'll read, I'll enjoy the library. In 2023 things were not that great, because I also had like health issues, which really took me out of things, and I just had to focus on my own self and my own recovery, and I could not just read. And when Palestine came in the news again, I just kind of forgot about what I was personally going through and just decided to focus my energies there. So this year I went back home, I spent time with my family, it was nice, and when I came back I just decided to be more mindful of how I will be spending my time, because again, nobody teaches us these things. So I started journaling, which I'm really enjoying, and I'm someone who never finishes like a journal, but I'm on my second journal of the year. I'm really enjoying it. It's just I'm doing it more mindfully, not just like putting everything out there, which is the purpose, but also kind of like trying to find my way through everything. And I'm trying to do things which will help my focus. So I also found like ways to meditate every now and then, so that you come back to your energy is still preserved and you're not that easily distracted, because Instagram has just about ruined my focus there as well. But for the past month and a half, I've just been enjoying fiction, and this is where I'm currently at. I've read 5 books in June, which is amazing, because I read 2 books in January. I read nothing from the end of January to the beginning of June, and in June I kind of like powered through 5 books, all of them fiction. And I mean, I'm going to talk about those books in another video, because this is not really supposed to be about that. But I enjoyed each book for different reasons, and yeah, I'm just really enjoying fiction. So if anyone instantly wants to know what those books were, all of those books are on my Instagram highlights. Like, you will find them in a section called 2024, and I think I've also posted like reviews about them, but that is another conversation for another day. And right now I just wanted to get back here and talk about some of the things that were on my mind. So thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys soon.